Welcome to County Board Wrap-Up, where each month we talk about some of the key decisions the Arlington County Board took at its meeting and how those decisions affect you, your family, and our community. With us here today is Arlington County Board Chair Libby Garvey, who was named chair by the board on January 1. Thank you for joining us, Libby.
Oh, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
And congratulations on being elected the chair of the county board.
Thank you. It's a real honor. And Jay Facette is our vice chair, and we've got a new board coming on. I'm just really excited about this year coming up.
Well, one thing that I have to bring up is your first meeting with the county board, your first regular meeting, ran into a big thing called Snowzilla.
It did, and that was a small sort of thing to us compared to everything that was going on, and there were some complications for us. We had to reschedule the meeting, but really the board was, it was a new board and a new manager, which we'll talk about in a little while, I think, but we were focused on our residents and what we needed to do for them. First, getting information out so that they were prepared for the storm, and then trying to manage what was happening at the time and making sure that roads were getting plowed as fast as they could, and that all of the emergencies, we would hear from people who needed chemotherapy appointments, who had other medical issues and various reasons they had to get out, and trying to make sure we got that information where it needed to go. I think we did a pretty good job, but we can do better, and we're going to be working on doing better, and I'm looking forward to that.
And we'll talk some more in detail about what happened with that storm a little while later.
Yeah.
As the new county board chair, tell me what the board is going to be doing different and how you see your role as county board chair.
Well, I think things aren't going to be real different, but they will be somewhat different. One of the things is I'm going to be focusing a lot on trying to keep our meetings efficient and effective. And working really closely with my colleagues. My role as chair, I think, is to facilitate the conversation of the board. So it isn't so much for me the what we do, but the how we do it. We have an incredibly skilled staff, incredibly skilled and talented board, and I think if we can make sure that the structure is such that they can work optimally, I think that'll be best for the county in a long run. So a lot of it is preparation, deciding what's going to be on the agenda, what's important, and then make sure that I know what are the different issues and concerns individual board members have, and make sure that they are able to get that out on the table and have it discussed and worked through, so that we may not all agree. And in fact, citizens may not, residents, people watching may not always agree with what our decisions are. But I want to make sure we're clear about why we made those decisions.
And will the board meetings proceed in any different kind of fashion? Will there be any different kind of rules and regulations for how people testify or how things are done?
Well, we've made a few changes, and I think actually we're going to, some of what I'm trying to do is have an openness to ideas that come in. So one of the things that we started out is we have in our procedures when we want meetings to end. So aspirationally, we dial it back an hour or two, so that hopefully our aspiration is to finish a little earlier, hopefully by, like not later than 10 at night. We may not make it, but at least that's sort of our goal. And then the other thing that we're trying to do is to make sure that the board is concentrating on what is board work and not get involved in details which are really staff work. So in our meeting, and we'll talk about this issue a little more, there was one issue where we had, originally, we were asked to adopt a whole report. And that's what we've sort of been doing. But when I looked at it, I realized, wait a minute, this board report with its background and its history, that's not board policy. There's really a small section that's board policy. So we pulled that apart and we accepted the report because we want to hear it, we want to get comments, and board members want to make comments. But what we're actually adopting as really regulations and board policy is a much smaller part, and I think that helps us focus the discussion and focus the citizen comments as well.
So you're looking at both substance and process?
Yes, I am, very much so. Very much so.
Are you going to continue the practice of Open Door Mondays?
Oh, absolutely. We're going to be around the county in different locations, and people can find out online where we are. And Open Door Mondays is such a special opportunity for residents to come in, and businesses too. I mean, everyone come in without an appointment and talk with one-on-one with a board member. And I think they're going to really enjoy this. We've got two new energetic young board members. We've got Christian Dorsey, and he's really making community engagement one of his big issues. Katie is going to be working with Board Member John Weissstadt on working on commissions and how we can improve how we connect with commissions. And also, John Weisstadt's working a little bit more on a small business forum that we're going to be doing. And then we've got Jay, who's working on transportation, and of course brings a lot of sort of the history with him, and he's great to have on the board too. So the team is an exciting team. I encourage people to come to Open Door Monday because it'll be a different person, you know, each time we rotate around, and it's an excellent opportunity to really have, as I say, that one-on-one conversation, and I think residents and businesses will enjoy it if they haven't done it yet.
How did you feel it went with the first board meeting, other than the problems caused by having to change
things around? Well, actually, I think it went pretty well. I mean, one of the things I think we need to do is be able to be flexible, and we had great support from people. I was really pleased. We had some real back and forth discussion from board members. We had one issue that was fairly complicated we had a motion, and then I think it was 3 or 4 amendments to the motion, and we worked through them. And I think we had good discussion, and I think it was clear why we did what we did. So I feel pretty good about it. I hope citizens watching felt good too.
And what can you tell us about your own priorities as chair? What are your top 3 things you'd like to accomplish this year?
Well, the overall priority actually is which I think you can probably pick up from a conversation we've been having, is to release the potential in this county. I think we have incredible potential, and sometimes we have structures set up that get in the way. And that's true for citizens too, and residents. So one of the things is I'd like to make sure we have our processes are as efficient and well run, and that our services are as good as they can be. And we have great public services here in Arlington, but there's some things we could do a lot better. I spoke on New Year's Day about the issue of permitting and zoning and things like that, where even our own staff doesn't understand all the rules. And if our own staff doesn't, how are the citizens and the residents and the businesses supposed to? So we need to work on that. And we are already, so I'm pleased about that. But that's one of the priorities. I want to make it more easy for citizens and residents to participate. Not everybody has time to spend an hour, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours at a commission meeting or a task force meeting once, twice a month. So that a very small percentage of our residents are actually, and businesses are weighing in on issues. And I think we can find ways to facilitate that and make it easier so that people don't have to just sit in meetings, and we can use technology. And again, I'm open to ideas. I'm looking forward to hearing from people.
Well, that's great. We'll take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll talk about what happened at the January County Board meeting.
Anywhere you drive in Arlington, you'll encounter county work crews who are out performing daily tasks like cleaning streets, collecting leaves, or plowing snow. Driving safely around these vehicles is extremely important to avoid accidents or injuries. Trucks do not have the same stop-and-go capability as cars. Therefore, here are some safety tips our Department of Environmental Services would like you to remember. Please slow down around work zones and provide county vehicles and personnel additional space needed to safely operate. Trucks have blind spots between the doors and the rear of the vehicle. Stay out of these areas to ensure you are seen. Do not pull in front of a truck when you need to stop or slow down. Be sure to signal your intentions and do not make moves abruptly. When parking, be sure to park as close to the curb as possible. Most importantly, practice patience. Be a pal, predictable, alert, and lawful, and don't zone out. Finally, if you encounter unsafe behaviors from a county truck driver, report it to our risk management office at 703-228-4444.
We're back with Arlington County Board Chair Libby Garvey, who is filling us in on actions the board took during its January regular county board meeting. It's a new year with a new board, and they are off to a fast start. Libby, the board took a very important personnel decision at this meeting. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, we did. We hired our manager, which is probably one of the most important, in fact it is, one of the most important actions a board can take, because it's really crucial that you have a good manager. The board sets policy, the manager makes sure it gets implemented, and you want to make sure it's implemented well. So we have over 3,000 employees. They report to the manager. It's the manager's job to make sure that employees are, doing what they need to be doing, and he also needs to come to us with a recommendation for the resources that he and the staff need to make sure this county runs. And so our budget now is well over $1 billion. We'll see what the manager presents, but he's got a lot of responsibility, really over 3,000 employees and well over $1 billion budget, and making sure that everything works well. It's a huge responsibility and key to running the county.
So he's essentially a CEO of
Exactly, that's what he is.
And who did you hire?
We hired Mark Schwartz. We did a national search, And this is my third executive that I've hired, because I was on the school board and did 2 superintendent searches. So we did a national search, which is important to do, and we had good candidates. Mark was among the top candidates from the get-go. And then, of course, we had 6 months to work with Mark and get sort of used to his style as a manager, and that really confirmed us in making the decision to hire him. I think it was a great choice, and I'm glad we made it.
And what in particular do you think impressed the board about things that Mark did as he was the acting county manager?
He was acting, and even as acting, which is a little bit of a dicey role, you're not really for sure there, he took a number of actions that showed that he's willing and interested and able to make improvements in how we do things. One of the issues was we had the Transitway in Crystal City, which was having some issues as a project. It was going over budget. He pulled it back, changed the team, got it back on track, no pun intended, and that's the kind of action and sort of we want in a manager. He also has been suggesting, and we're starting to implement some ways of like online permitting process, and he started working on that when he was still acting. Looking at ways for the citizens to be and residents to be more involved by using online procedures and apps, and it's just using the technology, making some changes. And then we can get into the snow and how he actually did, because I think that confirmed for me that we made a good choice and that we've got a great board.
Well, and that's a perfect segue into what I wanted to ask you next. I wanted to get, no pun intended, a little more in depth about the snow and how Snowzilla affected the county.
Right.
What can you tell us about that?
Well, as everybody knows, it was a huge storm, huge. And one of the key things when you've got a snowstorm is the preparation. And Mark and our staff and their leadership, they tripled the number of contractors that we usually have. We also went to the National Guard and got 3 vehicles and folks to manage those vehicles from the National Guard, which ended up being tremendously helpful. There were things we could have done better. And one of the things I appreciated from the board and from Mark and from our citizens actually is the work that we're doing now to look at how we did, what can we do better, and making sure that happens. What I want the county to get to a little more, and I totally see that Mark is wanting to do this as well, where we're on the board, we're really on the same page, is what I call a virtuous feedback loop. So for example, for the snow, we had plans, and we implemented them, and then we got feedback, which showed where, ooh, there's some things we really could have done a lot better. So we're gonna get that feedback, and then we're gonna talk with folks, we're gonna redo the plans. So the next time the storm, we will have an improved plan, and then we'll see how we do, and I fully expect there'll be some things we could do better again, and we'll improve it, and then we'll make a new plan. And so you get a loop going where you're continuously feeding back to yourself and using residents to help us and our staff to find out how we can do things better. And I think that's crucial to a thriving community.
And I know one of the things that is being planned is actually a public forum to discuss some of the ideas the residents might have about how things could be done differently or what kinds of problems they had during the storm.
Right. We are going to be doing a forum, and staff will be managing that. We already have gotten a lot of ideas, and I want folks who are listening to know that we're taking those into consideration. I'd be happy to go over some of the lessons we learned already, if that's all right to do here. One of the things that we learned was that we had these snow maps, like where the plowing had been done. We're really pleased. It's very technologically efficient. It's great. People can see where we are, except there was a little fatal flaw. The information feeding into those maps came manually from exhausted crews who'd done the plowing after 12-hour shifts. And so what happened, we found, is the information wasn't always accurate. And you can imagine how distressing that was for a citizen who a resident who thinks, my street, it says it's plowed.
And
there's
it's
3
not
feet of
plowed.
snow.
Yeah.
No, that was really, so that actually made that was something we thought was going to make things better, that actually as we implemented it made it worse. We will improve that next time. So there are a number of things like that we could do. One of the things I'm looking at, and we'll need to talk with our business community, I'd like to see is opening garages for free. So we have a garage in this building where actually I left my car because I didn't want to be out driving in it, and that seemed the best thing to do. I came back to get it. A garage was empty. My car and one other car, all these empty spaces out on the street, all of these plowed in cars. One blocking our snow plows, making it harder for them to do their work, and then making it harder for people who have to dig them out. What if everybody could get their cars off the street into the garages, and you'd have a little bit of a window of time where it's free, you're not going to get charged, or maybe we have to work out some payment. We'll see, but that's one of the things I think we could work out on and do a lot better.
Well, and I know that the manager, in addition to reporting to the board on how we handled snow fighting for Snowzilla, he also reported to you he gave you an update on the transportation development plan.
He did.
And the plans for Columbia Pike.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure.
What is a transportation development plan?
Well, we are required to put that in I believe it's every 6 years.
Yes.
And that goes to the state, and the state uses that actually to get federal funds. So it's part of the whole funding mechanism. We do updates. Our update is due, and we have to do it every 6 years, is due this spring. And at our January meeting, though, I think this board, everybody's been frustrated about how slowly it seems that we've been finding something to replace the streetcar idea that we had. So at our January meeting, I made a motion, and it passed unanimously, asking for when we got an update, which was planned, that the staff include certain items which are really crucial to a high-functioning modern bus system. And those are things like on-level boarding, so you can just roll onto the bus, strollers, wheelchairs. Can we get that throughout the county? Signal prioritization, so when you come to a stoplight, the bus gets to control the signal and go through first, or coming up to a bright, doesn't turn red, the bus gets to go through. There's off-boarding fare collection. A lot of times what slows down buses is everybody waiting to pay their fares or to adjust their smart. They can have that taken care of off the bus, or find a way for them to do it once they get on the bus, but not have everyone waiting in line. So those are a number of issues. Two of my colleagues and myself attended a conference just recently with the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, and they had experts from around the country talking about bus rapid transit. It was fascinating. And one of the things we keep hearing is it can't be bus rapid transit if you don't have a dedicated lane. And we even sort of started out with that. And then as we talked to the experts, one of them said, no, actually, you don't need a dedicated right-of-way. About 90% of our bus rapid transit systems do not have that. But there are all these tools, such as the ones that I mentioned, that can help. So in Los Angeles, for example, they decided they wanted to upgrade their buses. They did not have a dedicated right-of-way. It took them 18 months. And in that time, they upped the speed by 20% on the buses and increased their ridership by 40%. So there are a lot of things that we can do, and we wanted to make it clear as a board that we want to hear from our staff about that and have those ideas included.
So you feel like progress is being made toward coming up with a plan for Columbia Pike?
I do. And the transportation plan, of course, is for the county as a whole. And it's great if we come up with a great plan for the Pike, but it's only going to be really effective if it connects to the region. So a lot of us are working also regionally to see what we can do there.
Well, and the one thing that I wanted to ask you about also is implementing some of the things that you're talking about is the Crystal City Transitway, the Pentagon City Crystal City Transitway.
Yes.
What is happening with that? You adopted an ordinance about that.
We did.
Why adopt an ordinance now? It's because it's coming closer?
Yes, and as it gets it's about to come online. And part of the issue is there are some dedicated lanes and part-time when they're not. So cars are not supposed to be in the bus lane. Okay. But if a car needs to make a right turn, they might need to get it, or left, so they need to get into the lane. So we have to have some clear rules for when cars can be in the lane and when not. And one of the things we stressed, which the board was really anxious to make sure we stressed, is that there's going to be a period as we get used to it and the public gets used to it. And police are not going to be out there ticketing willy-nilly, but they are going to be out sort of educating and maybe giving warnings and explaining to folks, and we need to make sure we have really clear signage. So there'll be a little bit of a transition, but we're going to be sympathetic with that transition and working hard to make sure that this just really works well for everybody. We hope nobody gets a ticket.
Well, and it's very exciting that this transitway, which it's going to connect to Alexandria as well, right?
Yes,
it's going to be along the Route 1 corridor, and it's coming this spring.
It's coming this spring, and it's good, and it's really a start too. And I'm hoping that it's going to connect on to Columbia Pike, and we could maybe even, which is the way where the streetcar was originally meant to go. We've kind of worked out the route, and the more, as with any transit, the more that's connected, the more people that ride it, the more useful it is. So it's a very exciting start, but it is indeed just a start. And I'd like to work with Alexandria and even Fairfax County. Be going down Route 1. There's a lot we could be doing, more than we're going, but we're starting, and that's great.
Well, lots of progress on transportation issues. We'll take another quick break, and when we return, we'll talk about a program for improving neighborhood streets and exciting renovations coming to a very popular park.
We just need to look at affordable housing being across the spectrum. I think in our business, in the real estate business, often talk about as workforce housing. So we needed every strata.
Service workers or clerical folks, having those folks live close to their jobs is better for the employers. It cuts down on transportation time. So we think in that way it helps the economy as well.
These people that are school teachers and work with the fire department or police department or simply going to graduate school and have one income, they should be afforded the same opportunities to live in places like this.
Chatting with County Board Chair Libby Garvey about some decisions the board took at its first regular meeting of 2016. And Libby, one of the other things the board did is it adopted a program guide for something called Neighborhood Complete Streets. Tell us what that is.
Yes, I would be happy to, but first I will do a small correction. We didn't adopt the guide. That was one of our governance issues I taught. So we accepted the guide. What we adopted was the criteria, which is more board level work.
Okay.
And actually you saw us in the board, a number of board members, I think every board member made a motion on various issues, some of which we decided didn't need to be voted on. The manager said, yes, we will do that. It really wasn't the policy level, and some of which were more on policy level. A couple of the things that we did, the overall reason for this was that it's important to have streets with good sidewalks that are safe for pedestrians. Well, we so far have not had really a way to do this in neighborhoods that don't have conservation plans, neighborhood conservation plans. So some of our multifamily neighborhoods, really there wasn't a system to get their streets up to par where they need to be. So this was kind of correcting that issue. One of the things we've heard about a lot is we call it vertical traffic calming, and that's speed humps, speed bumps. Those have been very controversial. There are people who really don't want them, and then there are people who don't have them and really do want them. We've spent a lot of time and energy on that and decided that there are a lot in the county right now. We would just take a moratorium, and that was one of the motions, to take a 5-year breather, and just or 3-year breather, I think is what we came out with in the end, and just not deal with that right now, but really deal with the issue of, sidewalk width and where they need to be. Jay Fassett, we didn't make a motion about this at all, but he's been working on this for a long time, and I think the whole board now is actually on the same page where he is, which is, we don't really need to have to do a 5-foot wide sidewalk. We could maybe do one that's not quite as wide, because there's some streets that are so small, if we insisted on the 5-foot wide sidewalk and all of our standards, they'll never get a sidewalk. So it's sort of like, a good enough sidewalk is better than none at all. So staff's going to come back to us with some recommendations on that. But I think on this issue, you heard, we really listened to the community and what folks had to say. There was a lot of back and forth at the board table, but we kind of worked through it pretty quickly and adopted it 5-0. So I was really pleased how it turned out.
And the overall goal is to just make streets and neighborhoods safer for everyone who uses them.
Absolutely. And there was a gap where some streets really just weren't getting, neighborhoods weren't getting addressed like they needed to. So that was to fix this.
Well, and I have to ask you also about another action the board took. You decided to participate with the District of Columbia and with Georgetown University and some businesses in doing a study on the feasibility of an aerial gondola over the Potomac River from Georgetown to Roslyn and back.
Yes.
What can you tell us about that? Why are you interested in studying the feasibility of that project?
Well, I'm pretty skeptical about this, and I would say the whole board is. I don't know how interested this board is specifically in studying it, but our partners really are. And it's important that we cooperate with our partners in the region and the area. So there were businesses in the bid that were interested in doing this. They actually came to us a couple of years ago and said, would you help fund this study? And at that point, there weren't too many partners, and we said, well, yeah, we might be, but why don't you see if anybody else is interested, because we're not really that interested. They came back and they had a number of businesses, the District of Columbia, the bids, and so we felt to be good partners we really needed to help participate. But I would say the board has a healthy skepticism about it. And I've been asked about the use of these resources. I've found with issues like this, if you don't actually study it and look at it, you spend a lot of time with people saying, but this and that, but you don't really know what you're talking about because you don't have the facts, and it can just go on for years. Better to get a good study, get some good facts on the table, and then look at those facts.
And the idea here is to see if both it can be engineered and also if it would have some sort of economic development
Right.
benefit, tourism benefit, and
Right.
transit benefit.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see.
And then just to wrap things up,
Yeah.
let's talk about something that we always like to talk about on this program, and that's some planned renovations for a park. What can you tell us about the planned renovations for Quincy Park?
Well, this is exciting. You know, we've been redoing playgrounds around the county. This is right kind of really in the heart of Arlington, and this is going to be our first fully accessible playground.
What does that mean?
That means it uses universal design, which means that people, no matter if you're fully able to use a playground, or if you're in a wheelchair or have some other physical needs, it's made adaptable so that you can use it too. So it's a playground for everybody.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It is. It really is. And it was wonderful looking at the pictures. I think when they were showing, we were in the middle of all of that snow, and I said, oh, look at these wonderful pictures of green trees and grass, and it's going to be just really delightful. We had a lot of community input on it, and it's time we had a fully accessible playground.
That's great. Well, Libby, thank you so much for joining us after what's been a very intense month, actually.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. It was a little bit intense. I'm really proud of how this new board did, and I'm just excited about the year ahead.
That's great. That's it for our January board meeting wrap-up with County Board Chair Libby Garvey. We hope you join us next month when we wrap up the February board meeting, a very important meeting where the county manager will present his budget for fiscal year 2017 to the county board for its consideration.